Jobs, the co-founder of Apple Incorporated. The Edison of today. A pioneer of the personal computer. A clear genius. New York Times says, so was Mr. Jobs smart? Not conventionally. Instead, he was a genius. That in which he didn't crunch numbers or spend hours studying data, but was creative, can find ways to invent a new revolution of things. Steve Jobs met Steve Wozniak in 1971 when Bill Fernandez introduced 21-year-old Wozniak, then enrolled in the University of California, Berkeley, to 16-year-old Jobs, a Homestead High School student. In 1976, Wozniak invented the original Apple computer, also known as the Apple I. Jobs had the idea of selling the computer. To fund its creation, Jobs sold his car, a VW van. They then received funding from a then semi-retired Intel product marketing manager and engineer, Mike Markkula. The Apple I went on sale in July 1976 and was market priced at $666.66. Why $666.66? Because Wozniak liked repeating digits. Next came the Apple II. It was introduced on April 16, 1977, at the first West Coast Computer Fair. It differed from the other computers, the TRS-80 and Commodore PET, because it came with character cell color graphics. While early computers used ordinary cassette tapes as storage devices, they were superseded by the introduction of a 5.3-inch floppy disk drive and interface, known as the Disk 2. By the end of the 1970s, Apple had a staff of computer designers. The company introduced the Apple III in May 1980 in an attempt to compete with IBM and Microsoft in the business and computing market. The Apple III is a business-designed personal computer produced and released by Apple Computer, but it was a failure in the market. And the Apple III was discontinued on April 24, 1984. Steve Jobs and several Apple employees, including Jeff Raskin, visited Xerox PARC in December 1979 to see the Xerox Alto. Xerox granted Apple engineers 3 days of access to the PARC facilities in return for the option to buy 100,000 shares of Apple at the pre-IPO price of $10 a share. From there on out, Steve Jobs was convinced that all future computers would use a graphical user interface, kind of like today's Windows, and development for a GUI began for the Apple Lisa. The Apple Lisa, also known just as the Lisa, is a personal computer designed by Apple Computer Inc. Steve Jobs began working on the Apple Lisa in 1978, but in 1982, he was pushed from the Lisa team and took over Jeff Raskin's low-cost computer project, the Macintosh. A war broke out between Lisa's corporate shirts and Jobs' pirates over which product would ship first and save Apple. Lisa won the race in 1983 and became the first personal computer sold to the public with a GUI, but was a failure due to its high price tag and limited software. In 1984, Apple next launched the Macintosh. Its debut was announced by the now famous $1.5 million television commercial. It was directed by Ridley Scott, aired during the third quarter of Super Bowl XVIII on January 22, 1984, and is now considered a crucial event for Apple's success.
And you'll see why 1984 won't be like 1984.
The Macintosh initially sold well, but follow-up sales were not strong due to its high price. The Mac was powerful in this market due to its advanced graphics capabilities. In 1985, Steve Jobs resigned from Apple because he found out that CEO John Sculley who had been hired 2 years before, wanted to fire him. In the same year, he founded Next Incorporated.
Between 1989 and 1991, Apple came out with 2 new products, the Macintosh Portable and the PowerBook.
The Macintosh Portable was designed to be just as powerful as a desktop Macintosh, but weighed 17 pounds with a 12-hour battery life. The PowerBook was a line of Macintosh laptop computers that was designed and manufactured and sold by Apple Computer Incorporated. The success of the PowerBook and other products brought increasing revenue. For some time, it appeared that Apple could do no wrong, introducing fresh new products and generating increasing profits in the process. After that, everything went downhill, producing products that just weren't working.
In 1998, Steve Jobs returned to Apple as CEO, bringing in new excitement and new products like the iMac computer, which sold almost 800,000 units in its first 5 months. Next came the iPod in 2001, featuring a palm-sized new way to listen to thousands of songs almost anywhere. And iTunes, a new way to buy music online.
Delivering his keynote speech at the Macworld Expo on January 9th, 2007, Steve Jobs announced that Apple Computer Inc. would from that point on be known as Apple Inc. The event also saw the announcement of the iPhone.
3 things: a widescreen iPod with touch controls, a revolutionary mobile phone, and a breakthrough internet communication. We are calling it iPhone.
In July the following year, Apple next launched the App Store to sell third-party applications for the iPhone and iPod Touch,
And brought in $1 million daily, with Jobs speculating that the App Store could become $1 billion business for Apple.
After years of speculation and multiple rumored leaks, Apple announced a large-screen, tablet-like media device known as the iPad on January 27, 2010.
The iPad runs the same touch-based operating system that the iPhone uses, and many of the same iPhone apps are compatible with the iPad. This gave the iPad a large app catalog before it was even released. Later that year, on April 3rd, 2010, the iPad was launched in the US and sold more than 300,000 units on that day and reaching 500,000 by the end of the first week. In May of the same year, Apple's market cap exceeded that of competitor Microsoft for the first time since 1989.
Apple released the 4th generation iPhone, which introduced video calling, multitasking, and a new stainless steel design,
which acts as the phone's antenna. Later that year, Apple again refreshed its iPod line, introducing a multi-touch iPod Nano, iPod Touch with FaceTime, and iPod Shuffle with buttons which brought back the buttons of earlier generations. The world has been changed because of Apple. Try imagining a world where Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak never invented the Apple I. Try to imagine using a computer today without the invention of the graphic user interface that started with the Apple Lisa and now is used in almost every computer made, so even beginner users are able to use a computer. Imagine having to go to a store to buy your music, or not having every piece of information you've ever wanted in the palm of your hand. From the Apple I to the Macintosh to the iPod, the iPad, and who knows what's coming next. Apple has changed the world.